Some folks look at me and see a certain swagger, which in Texas is called walking. Heh. Hello again, and welcome back to the series. I'm your host, and today we're gonna have a special little extra episode. In addition to the main series, I'm gonna do a series alongside it, if I can, of the direct-to-video sequels to these movies. I'm gonna be doing them in order of when they come out chronologically. They'll get their direct-to-video sequels done then. So as Bambi came up as our last, not our last one, but the video before last, before Saludos Amigos, I'm going to be doing a little extra D.E.A.R on Bambi II, which came out in 2006. This script was written by Sinead.
I do, however, have a head. It's attached to my body, it is me.
So thank you, Sinead.
It'll still be me.
If you're new here, welcome for the first time of I hope many, and I'm sorry that you're starting with the Bambi II video.
Oh shit, I'm sorry.
And if you're returning, I thank you once again for your continued patronage. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into this together. I was gonna do some research on the production of this movie, but then I discovered that very, very little is known about the production of this movie because it's Bambi II. So you'll see in the script basically all the facts I know about the production history. I know I usually talk about the production history in the introduction section, but I don't know much. Yeah, we'll see.
But I say, put the fucking cameras on the floor.
Bambi II is a weird follow-up. Weird, not a true sequel or prequel, instead a midquel set after Bambi's mother is shot but before he is fully grown. It offers us a window into the deeper relationship between Bambi and his father, as well as providing a backstory for the budding love triangle in the original film between Bambi, Rano, and Feline. Produced 64 years after the original, that is, to my knowledge, the longest gap between an original film and an official follow-up in theatrical film history. The problem is, it's just not very good.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
First of all, let's talk about both the movie's greatest asset as well as its biggest missed opportunity. The Great Prince of the Forest, Bambi's father, was voiced in the original by the great Fred Shields. Since Shields died in 1974, 32 years after the original, and exactly halfway between when the original Bambi came out in 1942 and when this follow-up came out, theatrically in a few countries in 2006, Shields had to be replaced, as the Great Prince has the second largest part in this film behind Bambi, and has many more lines of dialogue in this than in the original. To replace Shields' commanding baritone, they recruited one of the greatest actors of his or any generation, Sir Patrick Stewart. This should, at a bare minimum, be a boon to the film and elevate it a little bit. And to his credit, Sir Patrick does give an engaged, thoughtful, and tender performance as the Great Prince. However, as much as Stewart is the consummate professional actor and gives just as much effort in this performance as he did when I saw him on stage in London as Prospero in The Tempest, sadly, the actual part that has been written for him in Bambi II utterly pales in comparison to the scant few lines of majesty and foreboding that Fred Shields delivered. While Shields in 1942 was given, when put side by side to Stewart, far fewer actual lines of dialogue, what he had to work with felt a lot more meaningful. More on that specifically in a little bit. That's the problem with this film as a whole, honestly, especially as it stands as a follow-up to the film that the original Bambi is. It all feels incredibly lightweight and disposable, lacking true depth or meaning or anything even close to as deep as the universally resonant themes of life, death, and rebirth that were present in the original Bambi. Bambi is a film that is about the life cycle of an animal, one animal, following him from the day of his birth through his adolescence, youth, formative experiences, losses, loves, hardships, right up until the day in which his own children are born, and he takes his father's place as the guardian of the forest. That's the plot of the original. What is the plot of Bambi II, you ask? The plot, with a bit of briefly edited help from Wikipedia, is this. Moments after his mother dies, Bambi is greeted by his father, the Great Prince, who takes him to the den. The Great Prince asks Friend Owl to find a doe to raise Bambi, but Friend Owl says no, do it yourself.
Do it! Just do it!
The Great Prince has to take care of Bambi until spring. Later, the Great Prince allows Bambi to be with Thumper and Flower at the groundhog ceremony. At the groundhog ceremony, Bambi meets back up with a juvenile feline. The groundhog is coaxed out of his hole, only to be scared back in by the douchey Rano, who tries to impress Feline with stories of his encounters with man. When Bambi believes the story, Rano is about to fight Bambi until he is called away by his mother.
Howard! I found my girdle! It was in the dryer!
Great, Ma!
I think it shrunk! I'm spilling out like the Pillsbury Doughboy here!
R.I.P. Howard's mom. Bambi falls asleep, waiting for his father, and dreams about reuniting with his mother. He wakes up to what appears to be his mother's voice, which calls him into a meadow, but it turns out to be an ambush by man. The Great Prince comes and saves him in time, but is furious that he fell for the trick. Days later, it sounds like you fucking let your kid get away from you, dude. It sounds like you were just an absent father, but whatever. Days later, Bambi sees Rano bothering Feline and gets into a fight with him. Rano chases Bambi and Thumper through the forest until Bambi leaps over a large ravine to safety. The Great Prince, having seen the whole thing, is impressed by this feat. Rano, jealous of the young prince, tries to jump over the chasm himself, but falls in like a fucking dick. The next day, Thumper encourages Bambi to talk to the Great Prince, and the two connect. The Great Prince allows Bambi to come along with him on his patrols, and as the two get closer, Friend Owl approaches them and introduces them to Mina, a doe who was a childhood friend of Bambi's mother and has been selected by Friend Owl to be Bambi's new mother. Nice.
Not like a regular mom, I'm a cool mom.
Bambi realizes the Great Prince had planned on sending him away and snaps at his father, while the Great Prince concludes that he is not meant to raise Bambi. Bambi sadly accepts the change. Yeah, this movie's kind of
Oh! Oh, beautiful!
Watching this for the first time as a 27-year-old was really weird. It was really genuinely quite strange. It's such a, like, child's movie. It's such a, like, kids movie. Like, way more than most of the animated classics. It's for the children's. On the way to Mina's den, Rano shows up to taunt Bambi again. The two get into another fight that sets off one of Man's traps, alerting Man. Bambi saves Mina by leading Man's dogs away from her, and the Great Prince arrives. The dogs chase Bambi, and his friends help him fend them off. Bambi evades all but one of the dogs. Bambi finally kicks the other dog off of a cliff, but falls off as well. Everyone grieves him until Bambi reveals he is still alive, and he and the Great Prince reconcile. Guess basically he had to prove himself as a child and almost die for his father to show him any real affection. It's kind of screwed. It's not a movie with a very nice, this movie really assassinates the character of the Great Prince of the Forest. It makes him a complete deadbeat dad and just a total dick, basically, for no reason. Whereas the original Great Prince was kind of distant and cool, but was a really good father, completely just stepped up and took Bambi in, seemingly. And this makes it seem like he was just so reluctant and just ugh. And also, just I may mention this later, but Patrick Stewart's American accent is just not good. He's trying to do this transatlantic because Fred Shields in the original kind of was basically in that era of the 1940s and had that sort of transatlantic sort of accent speaking, the man has come, he is here again, there are many this time. But, he had this sort of where he skated over his R's a little bit.
I think Mother was glad to see me do something rather than marry.
Yeah.
She was a real feminist, and she thought, move on.
Patrick Stewart's just British, and he tries to do that a little bit, but he just ends up being British, so he fails.
You get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
Anyway, first time of many that I'll get into friggin' accents with you, my people.
And she's scrabbling around to get them back on again, but even before she can get her knickers on, I've seen everything. I've seen it all.
Okay.
Moving on. Later, Thumper shares his version of the chase with the rest of his friends, and Bambi, whose antlers have just started to grow in, enjoys the tall tale with Feline. Rano appears and vows vengeance on Bambi before being bitten on the nose by a turtle, like a fucking dick.
Well, what's so goddamn funny?
Bambi meets up with the Great Prince, who shows him the field where he and Bambi's mother first met as fawns. So yeah, that's the plot. The story just doesn't fit with the original. It is dialogue heavy and busy, whereas the first was often slow, silent, and contemplative. Feels like a small stakes, nothing of a story that never adds much of substance that wasn't present in the original, and what is added only serves to undermine the original's characterization of Bambi's relationship with his father. The Great Prince of the Forest in the original Bambi was a mysterious, stoic, stern, yet also kind and reassuring presence. He never said more than he needed to, and he was always perfectly understood. The prince in this film is chatty, confused, insecure, frustrated, and ultimately a bit lost. I understand that he is grieving the death of Bambi's mom, just like Bambi himself is, and that the point of showing his failings is to highlight this difficult period in both of their lives. But damn, they didn't have to completely go against everything the character was in the original, everything that made the prince unique and special in the first place. Also, not for nothing, but while Patrick Stewart is undoubtedly one of the greatest actors of all time, his American accent, at least in this movie, leaves much to be desired. Yes, of course. I already got to it, but anyway, yeah.
End of quote. Repeat the line.
Repeating myself here, but it's true. Patrick, you failed.
You lose!
He possesses the requisite vocal quality to imitate Fred Shields' performance from the original, but the shaky accent work kind of ruins the illusion. Yeah, the emotions are there, but the details are not. Correct.
Tell me you like my hat.
You're not wearing a hat.
Say it. Say you like my hat.
You're not wearing a hat!
To give the movie some real credit, I will admit that the animation certainly could be far worse, as it is worlds more polished and smooth than some of the other Disney Toon productions I've seen in my time. Now, I haven't actually seen that many, but I've seen a few, and as we get through this list, I'll basically have seen them all by the end, so yay me.
Hooray! Responsibility!
This is honestly one of the better looking movies of its type. There was another one that was produced around this time. It was, I think, Return to Neverland, the Peter Pan sequel. I've never seen that. I've seen the trailer for that a million times on so many DVDs, but I will eventually be watching that in a few weeks. I guess I'll have to when I watch Peter Pan, so I'll have to do a video. A deer on Return to Neverland, I think it's called. Anyway, that being said, when you are the follow-up to one of the most famously gorgeous, painterly, and picturesque animated films of all time, I mean, at a certain point, what the hell are we really even doing here? This movie can look as not bad as it wants to, but the entire runtime of this film is still not as visually impressive as any single individual minute of the original movie. The songs are also mostly incredibly corny, and not in the fun, weird, time capsule nostalgia way of the original Bambi's few songs, but in the bland, poppy, corporate mid-2000s sense of the word. Yeah, there's just a lot of really, treacly, fawny, just oh, we're in the meadows, and, pretty voices, but every song sounds about exactly the same, la 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 la. La 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 la. It's not great. Another note, but this film also portrays the prince and Bambi's mother as committed mates to each other, which the original cleverly left ambiguous, and which I prefer. In the original, it was acknowledged that the prince was Bambi's father, and Bambi's mother clearly has a great deal of respect and admiration for the prince, trusting him around Bambi, but it is never stated or even really implied that they're an actual exclusive couple. I find this ambiguous dynamic more interesting, that the prince is more akin to the leader of the group of deer and the forest as a whole, rather than her mate specifically, making it all the more special and unusual that he does take on the sole responsibility of raising Bambi rather than pawning him off, like the prince in this follow-up tries to. This mid-quel follow-up.
This baloney. He won't, He doesn't stand for baloney.
Thanks, I really needed to know that the Great Prince of the Forest is a wannabe deadbeat dad.
Stay out of Malibu, deadbeat!
By keeping them simply his biological parents and nothing more to each other, or at the very least, keeping it a mystery,
Mystery!
We, along with Bambi, are left pleasantly surprised by how completely and utterly the prince takes the young fawn under his wing at a moment's notice. This movie's rewriting of that decision is a painful and awkward process, only serves to, as I stated earlier, totally confuse and unnecessarily complicate what was already a truly deep and interesting father-son relationship between the two characters. Sorry, no critics roundup. Nobody, I haven't, like, maybe I'll eventually do, like, look at some rankings of these Disney Toon or follow-ups and sequels, but not today, Satan.
Not today, Satan. Not today.
Ultimately, this film is a pretty aggressively below-average late Disney Toon offering, from Disney Toon's Australian division, no less.
The manager opposition business will resume his seat.
You're such a cunt.
I had about as much fun watching this as I did watching the second Wreck-It Ralph film, and so I will give it a 3.5 out of 10 and have done with it. That's actually a bit higher than I rated the second Wreck-It Ralph film, but you'll have to wait quite a while to see that. The themes of this movie are, I don't know, the difficulties in growing up and in forming a bond with your parents, especially in the wake of a tragedy. But the thing is, there were so many better ways to do this, and it's not that the way that they did it in this film is inherently bad, it's that it's a terrible, terrible sequel to the original in terms of connecting the themes at all to it.
And she doesn't know what's happening, but I've seen everything. Again.
They're totally antithetical in terms of the sequences and the actions of the characters and their emotions and their reactions to things. Everything in this just contradicts what we knew about, at the very least, the Great Prince in the original, and somewhat Bambi as well. Bambi is portrayed as even more timid in this. He's just extremely awkward, and it's I don't know. It's a bit of a Lion King 1.5 sort of scenario, except not nearly as good. Like, it's just like an awkward midpool, but where Lion King 1.5 sort of takes the Deadpool approach to that and has a lot of fun with that. This is just like very straight and treacly, and I don't know, just not that fun. I didn't like it very much. It was my least favorite Patrick Stewart movie I've ever seen. I'm sorry.
No, sir, I didn't like it.
And that's it. On the weekend, we'll be back and looking at 1944's The Three Caballeros, God willing. The first kind of sequel in Disney animation history, so it's kind of fitting that I did this first. So please do join me for that as well. Thank you for watching this very special extra dear. Dear. And if you're still here, good night, good luck, and enjoy the afterword.
all.